My friend Monique has discovered a new loom knitting stitch. It's called the half linen stitch, and she is permitting me to make a video to show you how to make it yourself on whatever loom you happen to own. The little blue sample is worsted weight or number 4 yarn on the light end of the scale, done at a normal degree of tightness. To show you how it normally looks, these other 2 samples are cotton, so I'm knitting them more loosely because they will tend to shrink. And also cotton has no resilience whatsoever. These will make excellent soap bags. This is the back of the fabric, which I think is also very nice and has a unique character, and I can see it would have a lot of uses. I'm going to show you how to do this on 2 kinds of looms. This is a small knitting board loom, KB, and it is similar to quite a lot of loom styles. So any loom that has pegs similar to this, you will work as I'm going to show you here. This one's a kiss, and actually we do it the same way, but just to make it easier to visualize, I'll show it to you on that one as well. We're going to start with the knitting board because certain things are going to be easier to see on this one. First thing for you to know is any version of knit stitch will work. In this case, I'm using the E-wrap, but it would work just the same whether I did or not. Knit 1, now slip 1, but we're going to slip with the yarn on the knit side of the fabric. I'm not handling this very gracefully. Let's see if I can do better on the next one. Did you see how I just popped the stitch off, put the yarn in front of the fabric, and replaced it? Let me be more graceful this time. Lift, put the yarn in front. By in front, I mean in front of my loop, not in front of my peg. Replace the loop just exactly as it came off. Knit the next stitch. If you were not E-wrapping, you would do it with whatever stitch you were using. Here we go. Slip the yarn. So, for example, if I was U-wrapping, I would do this. Since I would like to keep my piece consistent, I just undid that. And I'm going to do my E-wrap. Lift the stitch we want to slip in front of. Drop the yarn behind the peg but in front of the fabric. Replace the stitch. Knit the next stitch. Lift the stitch to be slipped. Now a lot of times when loom knitting, we slip stitches, but we generally slip them behind the fabric, like that, and then go on and knit the next stitch. But in this case, we want it in front because that slipped stitch is part of the design. There it is right there, and there, and there. So let's see, I've slipped one. I'm ready to knit. And slip. And I'm going to knit the last 2. Now I want to show you something that applies to all looms about the setup. Basically, as you saw, this is a 2-stitch repeat. Knit, slip, knit, slip. So you would use a multiple of 2 to go all the way across. However, I wanted to do 2 things that make things a little bit different. I wanted a knit stitch here and a knit stitch here. So I needed to do a multiple of 2 plus 1, the plus 1 being my extra knit stitch. Then I added 2 additional stitches, 1 at each end, because these will be taken up in the seam. So they don't count in the pattern at all. And what I am doing is knitting them on coming down to the right, I knitted this one, but I'm going to slip it going back. And that has to do just with how I'm going to seam it and the nature of my project. It's not essential to this stitch at all, but it's something we sometimes decide to do, and I did decide that. Row 2 is just to knit every stitch. So I will. And that's fast. I will talk while I knit about cotton yarn. It nearly always shrinks. That's one reason we knit it loosely. It's one reason I chose E-wrap for this loom with this weight of yarn. These are both on the heavy end of number 4 completely cotton yarns. And there we go. Also, it has no resilience and no stretch. So if you fail to knit it loosely, you just make your life difficult. Let me untangle things for a minute, and we will go back. I'm slipping peg 1. That's just part of my personal decision on this. Then knitting, slipping, knitting, and slipping all the way across. Let's look at the Kiss loom and work on it. I have 4 washers because I'm knitting yarn that's on the heavy end of the number 4 scale. This is a small gauge Kiss loom. And for comparison, this is the light end of number 4. I knitted it on this loom too, but I knitted it on this side using 0 washers. So it comes out a denser fabric. All right, let's get started. Same as on the other loom, I'm slipping stitch number 1 and beginning the actual pattern on stitch 2 with the knit stitch. That's the normal U-stitch that we use for kisses. Lift, slip in front of the work, and knit 1. This is why I am doing the Kiss loom second. We are doing the exact same thing as you saw on the first loom, but the presence of the pins makes it a little harder to visualize. Let's go very slowly. When I lift that off, if I bring it straight across in front of my stitch, you can see what's happening. It's still behind the pins, as stitches always must be on the Kiss. And this goes back on its peg. However, I found a faster way to get the job done that is the exact same thing, but it doesn't look it. Watch. Lift, bring the working yarn to the front next to the peg, and now back. It's still back there, running underneath my row of stitches, but I just took a shortcut about getting it there. And I'm not going to knit fast on this film, but when you start trying, you'll see that it is faster. Here's what we'd normally do. We'd wrap the peg like this to make a stitch. But I've already lifted a stitch off the peg, and now I just want this stitch to come in front of the fabric. So I temporarily bring it forward on the far side of the peg from where it started, and then back, and the same effect is achieved. There is no moral superiority in doing one over the other. You know me, I don't like to see knitting styles as a big deal. Just do what works for you. That way works well for me. But we are accomplishing the exact same thing. So I'll do it the original way. And back onto the peg with the yarn slipped in front. Knit, slip, on this one. And I knit the last two. I've set it up the same as I set up the other one, so we have a knit stitch and a knit stitch and a knit stitch on either end of those for the seaming. So I'm going to slip that first stitch, and then on the way back you can do it one at a time as I'm doing now, or you can wrap the whole row as I'll do with the rest of it. Whatever works for you using the Kiss You stitch. Could you use another kind of knit stitch on a Kiss? Yes, you could. There really isn't any rule against it. I don't think most Kiss loomers ever do. I never do. This one is just so gorgeous, and the loom is made to do it so beautifully. But there's no reason that if you had a desire to use another style of knit stitch, you could not do so. Okay. Quick review. This stitch is not part of the pattern, nor is the final stitch. I am slipping the initial stitch on every row, but that isn't really part of the pattern. The pattern is knit one, then slip one, all the way across. But the slipping is to the front of the work. Knit one, slip one. In addition to being a 2-stitch pattern on row 1, it's a 2-row pattern. Row 2 is just simply knitting. So in this case, I'm always doing knit one, slip one, moving left to right, and knitting across, moving right to left. When I knit with this loom hook, people always ask where they can get one, and the answer is you can make it yourself. I have another video on doing exactly that.